All right, then, breaking development. This just in. Donald Trump, the U.S. president, says Israel and Iran both violated the ceasefire. U.S. President Donald Trump, before leaving for the meet of the NATO leaders in The Hague, has said on Tuesday that both Iran and Israel violated a ceasefire that he himself announced just hours earlier, and he was not happy with either country, but especially with Israel. Speaking to reporters before leaving for this NATO summit in The Hague, Donald Trump, the U.S. president, says Israel unloaded right after agreeing to the deal. He also said Iran's nuclear capabilities are gone. But the latest development is that he is, in fact, not happy with Israel, and that Israel and Iran both violated the ceasefire that the U.S. president himself had announced just hours earlier. He said, let's call it the 12-day war and not a day more. But at this point in time, the ceasefire being violated, not standing even 12 hours. Is it an embarrassing position for Donald Trump, who would come out with those braggadocio statements on Truth Social, but the ceasefire not standing, continuously in tatters, cracks that were visible quite rightly right after those Truth Social posts. And the U.S. President Donald Trump saying that Israel unloaded right after the violation, right after the ceasefire was announced, and that Iran's nuclear capabilities are gone. NEWS9's senior executive editor, Aditya Rajkol, joins us on the broadcast here. Aditya, God knows what's going to happen at the NATO summit in The Hague. The leaders are already there about 2 days prior to U.S. President Donald Trump, because they must prepare for what Donald Trump might bring to them. But Donald Trump certainly not happy with Iran or Israel for violating this ceasefire. He himself announced with those major exclamation points on social media.
Well, that's right. That's a big development coming in. U.S. President Donald Trump has said that both Israel and Iran have violated the ceasefire in the Middle East. He has added that Iran's nuclear capacities are gone, and has said that Tehran will never rebuild its nuclear program. So it's a big statement that's coming in. He doesn't seem to be happy with both Israel and Iran, but especially with Israel in this particular case. Remember, earlier in the day, he had announced a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, but repeatedly thereafter we had firing that continued, missile attacks by Iran initially that led to killing of 4 civilians in Israel, and thereafter some response coming in from the Israeli Defense Force. Also, there have been some assassinations that have been reported in Tehran as well. So it does seem that ceasefire has been violated by both the parties in this case, not listening to Trump. We'll have to wait and watch how things unfold, but clearly it doesn't seem that the ceasefire has completely been enforced down on ground.
The Israel-Donald Trump relation, can we try and, put that under some sort of scrutiny? Because back in 2020, and we were discussing this last night when the Al-Udeid air base came under attack, Aditya, back in 2020, Qasem Soleimani, it was the same playbook. The drone strikes were carried out. There was some sort of coordination. They'd all told what air bases to evacuate. And then there was no sort of retaliation after Iran attacked those air bases. All of those missiles thwarted back in 2020 as well. But this particular aspect, where he says that he's especially not happy with Israel. How does one look at this development?
Well, of course, both the parties, Israel and Iran, had given their commitment that they will abide by the principles of the ceasefire that were agreed upon by the 3 parties. But in this particular case now, Donald Trump clearly mentioning that he's particularly not happy with Israel, because it does seem that Israel went ahead with a lot of statements coming in from the ministers in the cabinet of Benjamin Netanyahu, that there will be a strong response, a revenge taken against Tehran. There have been some multiple, airstrikes by Israel in the morning in Tehran. There have been several casualties that have been reported. Also, there were evacuation orders that were given by the IDF in the center of Tehran, saying that there will be limited airstrikes that will be carried out. And apart from that, there were statements from the defense minister, the national security minister, and the finance minister of Israel, indicating a very, very tough and a strong response from the Israeli side towards Iran. While there was one missile that was fired from the Iranian side after the ceasefire, there weren't any kind of casualties that really took place. So